Welcome to FintechOS Evolv. I'm Kyla Reed with FintechOS, and today I have with me Ash Govindia, who is the SVP of Growth here at FintechOS. Ash, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Kyla.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk a little bit about your role at FintechOS and what you do. Can you break it down for me?
Yeah, so I mean, FintechOS has obviously been pretty established in the European market now for almost close to 8 years, and I have been brought on to help expand in the US. So I'm based in New York. I've spent 5 years in the US so far. So obviously you can tell from the British accent, I'm not born in the US, but spent a considerable amount of time in the US, and I've been quite close to a lot of the financial institutions here. So I guess my remit is really just to figure out how we can get the word out across the US market. How do we tailor our value proposition to what US community banks, credit unions are looking for, and figure out a way to expand our footprint in the North American market.
So before you came to FintechOS, you spent quite a few years at Accenture, 17, right?
Yeah, 17 years.
Yes.
It's a long time,
so
right?
It is a long time. I feel like these days that's a bit unheard of to stay with a company that long. So what made you decide it was time to make a move?
I think there's a multitude of reasons, right? There always are. 17 years is a long time. I definitely know people that spent longer at Accenture.
Yeah.
But I had a great ride. I think I learned a lot. I joined straight out of university, so a lot of exposure across different industries, different types of different roles. Obviously, it's not 17 years even doing the same type of role across industries.
Yeah.
And the majority of my time was in financial services. I was leading our technology partnerships, so working with a lot of fintechs, a lot of technology platforms that would be partnering with us to build solutions that banks would be interested in, right? So that kind of spanned across retail, commercial, payments, a number of different like departments, and so I got a really good idea of the fintech landscape, the way the market had moved over the last decade, and then I started talking to Teo, right? So, and the FintechOS value proposition, I think even though the company's been around for a long time, I think it's kind of come to a time now where I think it's very attractive for banks in the US market. I think they're ready for it, whereas historically I think the timing probably wasn't right. And I spent probably just over a year with Teo and the team exploring the platform, understanding the use cases that have been developed across the European market. And I thought it was a really strong value proposition, right? And if we could get it right in the US, I think it could be very attractive to financial institutions here.
So was it a hard decision? Like, how did you balance the professional risks, the personal risks that go along with making such a big move?
It's a bit of a loaded question there, but I think there was a couple of milestones in there as well, right? I think I reached the age milestone, reached a family milestone. And I thought, hey, why not? Let's make another leap of faith here. It can't be harder than the first two. So I thought the timing seemed right. With all big decisions, I think you have your own board of directors, right? And if they all tell you the same thing, it kind of becomes a no-brainer as well. So I can't say it was a hard decision. Definitely a decision I haven't had to make in 17 years, but I'm really excited.
So after working so many years with larger institutions, what patterns did you see in the market? What frustrations did you see keep coming up over that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think if anyone knows anything about the US market, like we've got, there is a number of large players and they really dominate the banking and even the insurance space to a certain extent. The whole open banking momentum that's happened across most of the rest of the world, like it's really was starting here, like on paper, not really
Yep.
becoming the reality that a lot of other countries that have started to make it now.
Sure.
And so you can see, FintechOS has done incredibly well across the European market, given its, open, flexible architecture and ability to kind of integrate fintechs, other technology providers pretty rapidly. The US market kind of seemed to be a little bit more closed, and if you were bought into a particular platform, you'd typically be serviced by the suite of products that platform provides. And I think the frustration really is just unlocking that, especially in larger organizations where there's obviously much more inherent risk in touching core banking systems and
Yeah.
bringing replacing tools that they've used for many years. And so I think one of the key frustrations is the lack of an open API forward platform that banks
Yeah.
can use and leverage to start connecting all of these amazing things that fintechs are doing, and making them real and useful for banks, and building into their product portfolio so that they can take it to market.
So, were you seeing a gap between what clients needed and what they were buying? Like, do you think that they were kind of just buying these patchwork solutions to the open banking problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these challenges have been solved in the US by these point solutions that have kind of sprung up and got larger, and they've done really well. Right, they've solved the immediate need that the bank had at that particular time. So, if you wanted a deposit account origination solution, you know who to call. They'll pick up the phone. They'll give you a very standard templated solution, and then that's your product for doing that function. If you needed a lending solution, you would then call a different company who would then give you a
Yeah.
lending solution, and then so on and so on, right? And I think that suited the market, to be honest, right? The banks
Sure.
needed an ability to onboard customers digitally, mobile, iPad in branch, whatever, and these solutions met that requirement, right? No longer did they have to fill in a piece of paper and mail it into the bank to open an account. They could do it online, and I guess the value there is great, right?
Yeah.
I think where we're kind of getting to now is banks starting to realize that they're kind of building all these point solutions, managing multiple relationships. But most importantly, the customer has got much more mature in the way that they're thinking about consuming financial products. And
Sure.
so it doesn't make sense anymore trying to force the customer down these isolated routes to get the product that they probably need, but not really solving for what they're trying to solve for, right? I think the mortgage example Teo kind of really talks to best, right? If you're looking at buying a home, you're going to have to find insurance, the mortgage product itself. I don't know, in the US, you probably need some flood insurance or fire insurance on top of that. You probably need to find some movers. I mean, I think that the way that these life-centric journeys have been talked about in the European context has progressed a lot quicker than the US, right? But I think the US is really starting to kind of embrace this whole product bundling and offers and getting the consumer something that they actually need, using all of the tools the bank has at its disposal, and then
Yeah.
using platforms to build and integrate into other things that are out there that fintechs are providing.
Yeah. So, this trend of life-centric banking, right? We're seeing that kind of expand in the US. How are all of these point solutions that banks have adopted inhibiting that?
Well, I mean, at the very basic level, right? All of these point solutions are managing all of these products individually. So if the bank is trying to integrate these point solutions, they can just be spending a lot of time and energy in getting multiple vendors to figure out how to talk to each other. Really, what they're after is trying to provide that seamless onboarding experience for the customer, right? They
Yeah.
don't want to have to enter their name, address, date of birth 3 or 4 times trying to get what they're trying to get from a single bank, right? We've all had that
Yeah.
experience before. And so I think the amount of complexity that is out there already is already too great for them to try to do a lot of this bundling and single journey, the single journey experience that we're trying to build for them. Right?
So let's talk about the current acquisition culture in North America. What do you think is driving that? Is it those kind of like solving for a point solution? Or do you think that there's a wider strategy at play there?
I think these point solutions have got obviously very popular, right? And they've done incredibly well over the last couple of years, and they've built a customer base, a pretty strong customer base, and most of them are incredibly profitable. So I think that incumbents are trying to, maybe do a little bit of risk mitigation, but a lot of these, a lot of these point solutions have got banks on board that are thinking a little bit more digital forward, right? So they are already committed to trying to build a digital experience for their customers. And they come with a quite rapid, drop-in point solutions that the incumbent probably either doesn't have today, or the solution that they have today is maybe not being invested in, or is a little bit clunky, or
Sure.
most of the time it's just been customized and customized way too much by their whole client base, and now they're struggling
Yeah.
to figure out how they manage that, right?
So, what do you think is currently being overlooked in the point solution approach?
So I think value, right, and
Yeah.
price. I think these point solutions are coming in cheap for sure. They've pre-baked a digital journey that fit for purpose for maybe 70 to 80% of the market, which is great. If you want to onboard a student account, there's a point solution for that, right? I think what's being overlooked in that approach is what happens in year 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
And the students, the consumer, the retirees, the market in general is just going to demand more. And so the bank is going to have to figure out a way to make sure that they can continue to be relevant and offer products in a way that consumers want to buy them in, right? And these point solutions, you're just going to have to buy another point solution and another point solution. I think it's going to become significantly more expensive and cumbersome to manage all these solutions. Obviously, the beauty of our platform is that it's a single platform that can cater to any financial product, right?
Yeah.
And so I think most of the conversations I've had is that's really resonated, right? Like if multiple departments within the bank want to invest in a platform, they know that the FintechOS platform could cater to anything that they dream about in terms of creating a financial product, which I think has got the interest that we've got so far in the US.
Yeah. Do you find that banks are kind of hesitant to make a switch to more of a universal origination platform? Or do you think they're married to these point solutions? I mean, in my view, it's kind of like kicking the can down the road, right? They're just buying time before they're going to actually have to address this problem.
Yeah. And look, I think if you speak to, depending on who you speak to at a bank, I think you get a different answer.
Sure.
I think if you speak to the, CIO, CTO, they get it, right? They know the flexibility of technology today and what's achievable. They're always excited about our platform, right? It provides a level of customization or not that they might be looking for
Yeah.
in being able to invest in a platform for the future. A lot of hesitancy sometimes comes from like compliance departments, right? So a lot of the beauty of the point solution is that it's been, vetted 1,000 times, and you've got step A to step B to step C, right? And
Yep.
it's compliant, I guess, out of the box, right? Now that with that compliance, you lose a lot of flexibility. You lose a lot of that ownership that you might want in the digital experience. But it ticks a box for a lot of compliance departments. So in terms of buying time, yeah, I think banks are kind of really are kicking the can down the road. They're going to end up with a lot of complexity around the different digital point solutions that they've got, and the effort required most likely through adding more people, because let's face it, a lot of these technologies don't integrate with each other. They don't have as a flexible, open, API forward platform that allows them to do stuff with technology. I think they're kicking the can down the road, and they're going to have to solve it with adding more people and process to meet what their objectives.
So, what does a universal origination platform look like, and why is that relevant for the market right now?
So, and then there's not many, right? So that's another reason why I thought I would join FintechOS, because I've seen most of the solutions out there, maybe all of the solutions out there in the market. And what I think what we've got here is an AI product factory, which I think is the center of
Yeah.
of the platform. That I think is really the most important element. So we've got the ability to host all financial products under a single platform, allow them to be interlinked with each other, not just from a customer perspective, but pricing, offers, anything that you might want to do with
Yeah.
bundling is all within the same product factory. So the product factory, it hosts all the products. The universal origination platform is the glue that would allow you to originate any journey using any of those products. So if you were, let's take the example of buying a house, if you wanted to go down the journey of getting a mortgage, in that journey we can bundle insurance, different types of insurance based on the address of that house. Some are at risk of fire, some are at risk of floods. Offers for movers, because we all know that as soon as someone knows that we're moving, your mailbox gets filled with offers from
Inundated.
different
Yeah.
movers, right? But why are banks not having the relationship with all of these different services, which are obviously spending a lot of money to try and attract you, and bundle it within the same journey, provide a customized price, right? This is all about knowing what the customer wants to do and then providing them with the offers they need in the same journey, right? So mortgage, insurance, movers, maybe even a link to change your cable subscription or whatever. Like, I mean, the opportunities are limitless, right?
Yeah. As someone who has gone through that process in the States, all of that in a bundle would have been lovely. It would have saved me so much time and effort and likely money. So,
I think the key, though, would be that you would have a better relationship with your banking institution, right?
absolutely.
It helped you
Absolutely.
with a very stressful part of your life.
It's a stressful part of life, right? And I purchased my home right before COVID hit. So I missed that chaos that came along with buying during COVID.
Yeah.
But still, I can't imagine how stressful that would have been. It was stressful enough 2 months before. So, do you think that U.S. banks think in that like ecosystem way yet, or are they still stuck in a siloed thinking type of way?
It's a good question. I mean, you can say now has sort of been that, and then at the moment is the time that they've most most of them have been thinking about the ecosystem, but it's all relative, I think. I think you'd have to really think about the different segments of banks. I think the tier ones are it's a no-brainer. They've been thinking about it for the last 10 years, and some of them are doing a really good job of it. I think the mid-market and below are really just kind of coming around to this now. I think there's been a long time, a long time where they've relied on one or maybe two providers to do everything for them. And there's maybe some issues in that space which has kind of forced their hand to think about how they might start looking at alternative solutions for things that they need to integrate into that ecosystem.
So, kind of bringing this all back to your move to FintechOS, what made FintechOS the right place for you during this kind of shifting momentum in the market?
So I think we're all a little bit selfish, right? I think 17 years at Accenture, look, I learned everything there was. I learned everything. I learned a lot there was to know about the
Oh, yeah, of
financial
course.
services market. And I think for me, and speaking to so many technology companies and meeting so many tech leaders and founders, you can kind of sometimes see, where you'd like to be, like in terms of a cultural fit, in terms of what their strategy is, how the obviously how strong the product is in itself. I think it's like for me, it was just a nice balance of all of those things after speaking with the team over the course of, I think, maybe a year, right? Um, and so that kind of really made it quite easy for me. I mean, my background is pretty technical. So I graduated in computer science and I've always wanted to build stuff. And so this gave me the opportunity to, I guess, step into product, right, instead of services.
Yeah.
I think what the team were looking for was some guidance on growth in the US market and in a particular market segment. So I think for me, it was almost a no-brainer, right? Get to do something
Yeah.
that's new and interesting I haven't done before, get to use some skills that I've had in the back pocket, and yeah, get to support a US expansion, right? Which doesn't come around that often.
No, it doesn't. So, where do you see a platform like FintechOS making the biggest impact in the US market right now?
I think I'm thinking kind of a short, medium, long term around that. I think we've been very successful in the community bank and credit union space at the moment. I think that area is screaming out for solutions like this. The more conversations that we have, the more obvious it becomes. Like they're not saying the universal origination engine words, but
Sure.
what they're describing in terms of how can I offer my customers a shares account that also has a savings account, also is
Yeah.
linked to a special mortgage that I want to offer them in the future, right? Like they're asking us these questions, whether they're in RFPs, whether they're in meeting rooms, on conference calls, right? So these questions are starting to be asked more often. I think the short and medium term, I think the mid market seems like the perfect space to focus our time. There seems to be a lot of attention on really figuring out this omni-channel digital onboarding experience. Like we can talk about point solutions, but like we can do branch, online, and mobile, right? And whatever other product, whether it's Google Glass or Apple Vision, whatever it is in the future, and whatever other product as well. So when we talk about universal origination, not only are we talking about omni-channel, but omni, you know, financial product or even non-financial product, right? I think we've got a use case where we've added Netflix subscriptions to the origination journey. So
Nice little perk.
yeah.
Yeah. So, final question. What is advice that you would give to somebody in your position who's kind of looking to make a big career change?
I think I think you have to make a conscious effort to change from services to product. I think it is different, right? And that I think that applies whether it's to a small fintech or to a large existing technology platform. I think 17 years of understanding how the services business works is great. But there's definitely stuff that I've learned over the last couple of months here around how the product business works.
Yeah.
So I think a piece of advice would be definitely spend time with the team, see whether being in a product company is really something that excites and
Sure.
motivates you. You're building something, right? There's a IP in the technology that you get
Yeah.
to input into and to foster to market and then eventually sell, which may be exciting for some people, maybe not exciting for others. But it's
Yeah.
definitely different to a services organization.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're certainly glad that you've joined us on this fun little journey and our expansion in
I'm
the
excited.
States. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. And can't wait to see what you do in the role.
Thank you.
Thanks.